Tuesday, February the 4th, and I guess the coronavirus thing is all cleaned up. Nobody's worried about it anymore. We have recovered all of our losses from Monday. Look at the volume, still high. Everything's green. Google was down. They had earnings last night. Utilities are down because that's where the dividends are. People sell their dividend stock and buy some of these because they think that there's some momentum there. Advancers to decliners, almost 3-1. One of the advancers was Tesla. We're going to talk about Tesla when we look at the charts today, but they give it a new high, and they also say that it's overbought. And we're going to study that and see what that means and why it could be overbought. But our market breadth, advancers 2100, decliners 833. The advancing volume was almost 4 times the declining volume. That has taken our oscillator back towards the neutral line. Now tomorrow, for us to get to zero, we need a difference between the A to Ds of 1,000. And today, that difference was about 12 or 1,300. So it's possible tomorrow, with a little momentum from today, that we get back to that zero neutral line, which could very well be a turnaround. We're going to talk about Tesla, but while I've got the chart here, let's look at some of the indicators that FinViz shares with us. Insiders only own 0.1%. That's very surprising because I thought that it would be much higher with Elon Musk's shares. But insiders are selling. Institutions own almost 60%, and they've been buying. What you want to look at is the short float. The shares outstanding, there's 178 million shares of Tesla available to trade. 142 million are short. So there's a lot of people who don't own the stock. And when the stock rockets up like this, they have to buy that position back because these people here are going to want their shares so that they can sell them. So people who are short Tesla are getting told by their broker, you have to close this short position because the stock that we lent you, that person wants them back and they want to sell them. I mean, that's oversimplifying. Let's take a look at the volatility. Volatility dropped considerably. The S&P was up almost 50 points, 1.5%, so it's on its way back to 33.36. So it's going to test that high again, and it's going to be rejected there. And then we'll start the whole process of moving down towards the cloud, and then back up again to test it as long as there's strength in the marketplace. Amazon up 45, so it is at its previous high, which was its earnings high, and it closed right where it opened after its earnings day. So that's a pretty strong stock. But look at the volume. The volume was pretty low. Caterpillar up 374. I've gotten rid of my short 135 calls. So the 135s that I've had for such a long time that I kept rolling and rolling and rolling, I ended up making about $1,000 profit on the short position. And now I've got my 600 shares of Caterpillar naked with nothing short. And I'd like to see it move up to the 200 moving average. And that's when I'm going to put on a short. And I might even, well, let's just put that down here and say we want it to hit when it hits the 200 EMA, set an alarm. Fastly, FSLY that Andy was talking about, dropped a bit today, but then ended up 32 cents. So still not any definite movement there and no significant volume. Shopify had an amazing day, and I think I told you yesterday that I doubled my position there, my contracts. I'm looking for it to go to 496 and then stutter there for a while. Its earnings, of course, are February the 12th. Tesla was the big one. Let's come back to that one. Whirlpool up $3 with a little doji here, still in the cloud, and the Chiku span is approaching the cloud. The S&P, remember we told you about the Chiku span bouncing off of this candle? So we set an alarm. We set an alarm to say, if the Chiku span comes down and tests the top of this candle, we want to know. Well, it's just the top of this candle right here. So it just rocketed above that. So it's got lots of room to come down and catch support on these candles. Or it could just keep going up. And my feeling is that I'm not ready to buy any SPY puts. But I certainly will when it gets up to 33.36 and tests that high. So we're going to go back now. We're going to look at Tesla. What a day for Tesla. So I had these Fibonacci's here. This is a Fibonacci off of this down wave here. This is when all the short sellers started coming in. And you can see the Bollinger Bands on either side of the price. So I took this Fibonacci and 100% would have brought it back to this level here. And you can see that at 100% it stopped, but it kept right on moving up to 200% where it stopped for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. This is a good set of Fibonacci's. Traders are watching this. It stopped at 200, but then it rocketed up and it stopped exactly at 300. And now we have sellers sitting just under 400. It is so far out of the Bollinger Bands here, folks. It has to come down because the Bollinger Bands contain 95% of all trades. So we're in the 5% that are outliers. So it's got to come down. This would be a good time to be looking at Tesla puts. And I would look at some 800 puts, possibly some 700 puts out in March or April to give the stock lots of time to get down there, but it could happen rather quite quickly. There's going to be some profit taking here. This is short seller covering. I think I saw something today that said that the short sellers have already had to eat $5 billion in losses. Those $5 billion are what drove the market up here. So going back to Tesla, it's up 56% for the week, 100% for the month, 112% for the year. You don't think that there's some people ready to take some profits here tomorrow? I would think so. That's pretty much all I got to say. I think the market is strong. Apple, did we cover Apple? We didn't. But Apple is on its way to 323 again. That'll be a test where it's been once, twice, 3 times, almost 4 times. It will come back there again. I sold all of my short calls and I ended up making profit on my 310 and 315 short calls because of that big drop that we had on Monday in Apple. So now my Apple stock is short. I have no short calls there either. So I'm a little nervous. I like to be covered with short calls. And now my Caterpillar and my Apple don't have any short calls to absorb any market reaction. But the good news for Apple today was that their suppliers are going to come back online in China by February the 9th, and they'll be building iPhones again and AirPods and what have you.